In a quiet village called Oberle, nestled in the countryside, lived a young couple, Io and Juma. Their love was known far and wide, like a beacon of hope and warmth in the small community. Io, a vibrant and energetic woman, had always been full of dreams that were far larger than the simple life Oberle had to offer. She envisioned herself adorned in the finest jewellery, wearing the latest fashion trends, and standing out as a symbol of success among the other women in the village. Juma, on the other hand, was a simple man. He took pride in his work as a cobbler. He spent his days crafting shoes in his small shop, located in the heart of the village. His shoes were known not just for their durability, but for the artistry and care he put into every stitch. He loved his work, but even more than that, he loved his wife, Io. For him, happiness was waking up every day next to her and knowing that she was by his side. Little did he know that Io's desires would soon challenge the very foundation of their life together. As the months passed, Io's desire for more grew stronger. The small home they shared, with its modest furnishings and the simplicity of village life, began to feel suffocating to her. She started to spend more time online, scrolling through images of women draped in the latest fashions, wearing expensive jewellery and living lives of luxury. She wanted to be just like them, to stand out, to be admired. And so she began spending. At first, it was small things, new dresses, a few pieces of jewellery here and there. Juma didn't mind. He loved seeing Ao happy, and if a few extra expenses made her smile, he was more than willing to indulge her. But as time went on, Ao's spending spiraled out of control. She bought designer shoes, imported handbags, and luxury watches, all while her husband's modest income could barely keep up with their daily expenses. One evening, after a particularly extravagant purchase, Juma finally confronted her. He had been quiet for too long, allowing her to continue without question, but now he knew he had to speak up. "Io," he began gently, "we need to talk about your spending." Io barely looked up from her phone, her eyes fixed on the images of another pair of shoes she had been eyeing. "What's wrong, Juma?" He sighed, trying to find the right words. "We can't keep spending like this. It's becoming too much. I'm struggling to keep up with the bills. We're running out of money." Io finally looked up, her expression one of annoyance rather than concern. "Oh, Juma, don't start with me. Everyone I know has these things. I can't be the only one in the village without them. I deserve to have nice things too." "But we don't have the money, Io," Juma said, his voice strained. "Our savings are almost gone, and I can't keep up with your spending." Io waved him off. "It's fine. We'll manage. I promise I'll be careful with the credit card." Juma wanted to believe her, but deep down, he knew they were heading down a dangerous path. Still, he loved Ao too much to say no. He had always been a man who put his wife's happiness above everything else, even if it meant sacrificing his own peace of mind. A few days later, Io decided to visit her Aunt Zuri, a woman known throughout the village for her wisdom and calm demeanour. Aunt Zuri had lived a simple life, but she had found joy and contentment in her relationships and the love of her family. She wasn't impressed by material things, and unlike Io, she never felt the need to impress others. As they sat together on Aunt Zuri's porch, sipping tea and watching the children play in the village square, Ao voiced her frustrations. "Auntie, I don't understand. Why does it feel like no matter how much I buy, it's never enough? Why do I always feel like I need more?" Aunt Zuri smiled, her eyes soft and understanding. "Ah, Io, happiness doesn't come from the things we own. It comes from the love we share with others, the respect we earn, and the understanding of what truly matters in life." Io frowned, not fully grasping her aunt's words. "But everyone in the village looks up to those who have nice things. I want to be admired too. I want people to see that I'm successful." Aunt Zuri placed a hand on Io's arm, her touch gentle but firm. "Success, my dear, is not about what others see. It's about how you feel inside. No amount of jewelry or designer shoes can fill the emptiness that comes from chasing after things that don't truly matter. Io nodded, but her mind was still clouded with thoughts of the next purchase. She thanked her aunt for the tea and advice, but as she walked back home, she couldn't shake the desire for more. The village was too small, the life too simple. She wanted to stand out, to shine brighter than anyone else. Weeks passed, and Ao's spending continued unchecked. The credit card bills piled up, and Juma found himself staying up late at night, poring over their finances, trying to figure out how they were going to make ends meet. He had taken on extra work, even selling some of his best shoes at discounted prices, but it wasn't enough. They were sinking, and fast. One evening, Juma came home from work, his face pale and tired. He sat down at the kitchen table, burying his head in his hands. Io was busy trying on a new dress, but she noticed the tension in his posture. "Juma, what's wrong?" she asked, a hint of concern in her voice for the first time in weeks. He looked up at her, his eyes filled with worry. "Io, we're bankrupt. We have nothing left." The words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Io stood there, stunned. For the first time, the reality of their situation hit her. She had spent them into ruin. We're bankrupt?" she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. Juma nodded. "Yes. The credit cards are maxed out. The bills are piling up. I don't know what to do." Io's heart raced as she tried to process the information. All the dresses, the shoes, the jewelry, what had it all been for? She had thought she was building a life of luxury, but instead, she had torn down everything they had worked for. The next day, Io walked to the village store, her head hung low with shame. Mama Toba, the store owner, had always been kind to her, but today, Io could barely meet her eyes. "Mama Toba, I'm sorry. I know we're behind on payments. Juma's business has been struggling and we haven't been able to keep up." Mama Toba looked at Io, her eyes filled with concern. "Io, my dear, I've known you and Juma for a long time. He's a good man, and you've always been honest with me. I trust you'll pay me when you can." Io nodded, grateful for the kindness. But as she left the store, the weight of her lies and the shame she felt crushed her. She had dragged them into this mess, and now she had to find a way out. Back at home, Io sat at the kitchen table staring at the empty fridge and the bare cupboards. For the first time, she truly understood the consequences of her actions. Aunt Zuri's words echoed in her mind, and for the first time, they made sense. Happiness doesn't come from the things we own. It comes from the love we share with others, the respect we earn, and the understanding of what truly matters. Io wiped away her tears and made a decision. She was going to change. She couldn't undo the past, but she could make a difference going forward. She would start contributing to the household, using her skills to help lift them out of the financial holes she had created. She had always loved cooking, and she realized that she could use that talent to make money. With the help of Mama Toba, she borrowed ingredients and began cooking meals to sell to the neighbors. That evening, when Juma came home, he was greeted by the delicious aroma of a home-cooked meal. Io placed a plate in front of him, her heart pounding with anticipation. Juma took a bite, his eyes lighting up with surprise. "This is incredible, Io. You could sell this." Io smiled, feeling a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of this mess. With renewed determination, Io sought advice from Aunt Zuri once again. Together they visited the village market, and Aunt Zuri guided her on how to start small, using what little money they had left to buy ingredients. "You know how to cook, Io," Aunt Zuri said, her voice steady and encouraging. "Let your food speak for itself." Io nodded, grateful for her aunt's support. She started cooking for her neighbors, offering simple meals at affordable prices. Word spread quickly, and soon, Io's kitchen was the talk of the village. People lined up outside their home, eager to taste her food. Even her former shopping companion, Bola, came by one day. "Io, I never knew you could cook like this. This is amazing." Io laughed, feeling a sense of pride she hadn't felt in months. It wasn't about the fancy shoes or the designer clothes anymore. It was about building something meaningful, something that could help her and Juma rebuild their lives. A few weeks later, Juma received a phone call that changed everything. He had been awarded a contract to supply shoes for a major retailer, a deal that would not only save their business but also secure their future. When he shared the news with Io, they embraced, tears of joy streaming down their faces. It wasn't just about the money, it was about the fact that they had faced their struggles together and come out stronger on the other side. But just as things seemed to be turning around, tragedy struck once again. One evening, as they were celebrating Juma's success, they received a call from the hospital. Aunt Zuri had been admitted in critical condition. Io's heart sank. They didn't have the money to pay for her treatment, and the guilt of her past spending came rushing back. She felt helpless, knowing that her actions had left them vulnerable in a time of need. At the hospital, Io sat by Aunt Zuri's bedside, holding her hand and whispering through tears, "I'm so sorry, Auntie. I was so foolish. I was chasing after things that didn't matter. And now I don't know how to make things right." Aunt Zuri, though weak, smiled gently. "Oh, my dear, you've learned the most important lesson of all. It's not about the things we own. It's about the love we share and the strength we find in ourselves." Io nodded, but her heart was heavy with guilt. "But we can't afford your treatment. What are we going to do?" Aunt Zuri's smile deepened. "There's something you don't know, Io." With trembling hands, Aunt Zuri reached into the drawer beside her bed and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a life insurance policy naming Io as the beneficiary. Io stared at the document in disbelief. "I don't understand." "I've been preparing for this for a long time," Aunt Zuri said. "This policy will cover my treatment and leave you with enough to rebuild your life." Tears streamed down Io's face as she hugged her aunt. "But why didn't you tell me?" Aunt Zuri chuckled softly. "Because I wanted you to find your own strength first." Thanks to Aunt Zuri's foresight, she received the treatment she needed, and over time, she recovered. Meanwhile, Io and Juma used their newfound wisdom and resources to expand their businesses. Io's small kitchen venture grew into a thriving restaurant, and Juma's cobbler business flourished once more. Their small home, once filled with the weight of financial strain and material desires, was now a place of warmth, love, and laughter. The luxury items that once consumed Ao's thoughts were forgotten, replaced by the simple joy of preparing meals for her community and watching her business grow. Months later, Io and Juma stood proudly in front of their newly opened restaurant, Io's Kitchen, at the Oberle Market. The sign above the door glistened in the sunlight, a symbol of their hard work and resilience. "We did it," Io said, smiling up at Juma. "We really did it. Together." Juma grinned, pulling her into a tight embrace. "I always knew we could." As they looked around at the bustling market, filled with customers eager to taste Io's food and admire Juma's shoes, they realized that they had built something far more valuable than wealth. They had built a life together, one rooted in love, community, and resilience. But as life often does, it threw one final test their way. One afternoon, as Io was preparing a batch of her signature dish, they heard the news on the radio. A fire had broken out at the Oberle Eco Market. Several shops had been destroyed, and emergency services were on the scene. Io's heart raced. Their restaurant was at the Eco Market. Without a word, she and Juma rushed to the scene. When they arrived, they found the market in chaos, thick smoke filling the air. Their restaurant, the business they had poured their hearts into, was gone, burnt to the ground. Io fell to her knees, her body shaking with sobs. Juma knelt beside her, wrapping his arms around her. "We'll get through this, Io," he whispered. "We'll rebuild." But Io wasn't so sure. They had already used most of Aunt Zuri's insurance money, and they didn't have enough savings to start over. The despair threatened to overwhelm her. Just then, Mama Toba appeared beside them, her face filled with concern. "You're not alone, Io," she said softly. Io looked up, her vision blurred by tears. She saw the familiar faces of their friends, neighbours, and customers gathered around them. "We'll help you rebuild," one of the vendors said. "My brother is a carpenter. He can help fix your restaurant." Io and Juma were overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. The very community they had once served was now standing by their side, ready to help them rise from the ashes. With the help of their community, Io's kitchen was rebuilt, stronger and more vibrant than ever. It became more than just a restaurant. It became a symbol of hope and resilience. Io began offering cooking classes to others, sharing her skills and giving back to the community that had helped her when she needed it most. Their journey had been long and filled with challenges, but Io and Juma emerged stronger, their love for each other deeper than ever. They had learned that true happiness wasn't found in material possessions, but in the love and support of those around them. As they stood in front of their newly reopened restaurant, Io glanced at the framed photo of Aunt Zuri hanging on the wall. Her aunt's wisdom had guided her through the darkest times, and now Io was determined to honour that legacy. Their story was a reminder that no matter how difficult life may become, with love, resilience, and the support of others, anything is possible.